Hello everybody and welcome to this new episode of Low Code Corner. Today we are going to talk about record locking. I receive many questions about this feature, so I think it's better to discuss it and to explain how it actually works in DaDaBIK. I know that probably for some of you, this feature might be annoying sometimes. But guys, any multi-users application that takes data integrity into serious consideration should have this feature. So before the theory, let me show you an example that shows what can happen without this feature enabled. All right. So let's say, for example, that we have two users, user Bob and user Alice. At the moment, I'm just logged in as Bob in Chrome, in Google Chrome, and as Alice in Firefox. But I'm using the same DaDaBIK application. All right. So let's say that both the users want to modify information about this product. Okay. But Bob wants to modify the price, while Alice wants to modify the description. Okay, so let's say that Bob is entering the record in edit mode. And after a few seconds, also Alice enters the record in edit mode. Okay, Bob and Alice are inside the record. Okay, so, well, for example, let's say that, as we said, Bob wants to modify the price from 129 to, I don't know, 99. Okay, and yeah, that's it. Save. So now Bob thinks that the price is 99, of course, but if Alice modifies the description, for example, let's just remove AM, since the price here in this form, Alice form, is still 129, if she saves the record, now the price is back to 129. All right, and even for Bob, of course, the price is now 129. So let's go back to products, search. Here we go, 129. Okay. And this, of course, is unexpected. Let's say that Bob and Alice are the only ones allowed to change the price of a product. Then Bob might ask Alice, Alice, did you change the price? Did you change it back to 129? And Alice would reply, no, I didn't. She actually did, but not intentionally. She did it because of the lack of record locking. What happens instead if we enable the record locking feature, which is the default behavior, the default setting? So let's say that Bob is, again, entering this record in edit mode. All right. And let's switch to Alice, and also Alice wants to enter the record in edit mode. Sorry, again, the interface is in Italian, so let me switch it back to English. Products. Okay, you can't edit this item. The item is locked by user Bob. All right. So if I try to modify it and save, you don't have or have lost your lock on this item. So I cannot update this item. So if we check the record again, the description hasn't changed. So only if Bob releases the lock, then other users can enter the record in edit mode. So if, for example, Bob clicks on go back, so back to the list of the products, the lock is released, and finally, let's go back with Alice here. Alice can enter and modify the record. Okay. So maybe it is interesting to see what happens behind the scenes when I enter a record in edit mode. So let's say that Bob entered this record. Okay. So in the table DaDaBIK lock records, let me magnify a little bit phpMyAdmin. In the table DaDaBIK locked records, let's refresh it. As you can see, we have now a record representing a lock. We know that on the table products, and in particular on the record where the ID products is 17, we have a lock by Bob that was registered at this particular timestamp. Okay, of course, when Bob leave the record, so go back, for example, this record is deleted. Okay. A few things to discuss. First of all, there are, as I told you, there are some actions that release the lock. So, for example, if I'm here and I go back to the results grid, the lock is released. Or even if I change table, or I do some other actions in the application. But there are some actions that don't trigger the release of the lock. For example, let's say that I just, I enter this record and then I just leave the record open without doing anything. I just forget the record open here, or I just close the browser window. In that case, the lock will be alive for some time. Okay, but the good news is that you have a parameter in your config.php file that contains where you can set the number of seconds after which a lock is automatically released. So after this amount of time, even if I just leave my window open, the lock will be released by DaDaBIK if someone else does something on the application. Okay, So it's not triggered by a cron or something like that. And what happens if Bob come back to the screen, to the computer after a while, and the lock has been automatically released because that amount of time passed. Well, if Bob tries to update the record, DaDaBIK will produce an error saying that the user has lost the lock on the record. Okay. 3 additional things to take into consideration. First one, don't use the same account, the same username for multiple users. I'm in touch with many people who use DaDaBIK for their applications. Sometimes I've heard people sharing username and passwords among users, among different users. Don't do that. Well, not only for security reasons, of course, but also because, of course, record locking doesn't work. If two different, if two people access the same record using the same username, the locking mechanism doesn't work. Second thing to remember, if you access the same data, so the same database, not only with DaDaBIK, but also with other applications, for example, with PHPMyAdmin or any other applications, you can still have problems if two users access the same record using 2 different applications. Even 2 different DaDaBIK applications. And the very last thing is about the admin side of DaDaBIK. So when you edit the application, this part doesn't provide record locking. Take that into consideration. So if 2 admin users access the same field in form configuration, in the form configurator, for example, you can have those problems we have seen at the beginning. In this case, not on the application data, but on the application settings. So you should set up your workflow so that just one admin user edits the application. And again, of course, don't share credentials among different multiple users. Okay, that's it for this episode. If you have any questions, add a comment here or write on our forum. Bye bye.